These 22 respond to the letters of the Hebrew and other sacred alphabets, which fall naturally into three classes of a trio of mothers, a heptad of doubles, and a duodecad of simple letters. They are also considered as a triad of heptads and one apart, a system of initiation and an uninitiate. See Westcott's The Asiatic Tablet. Continued. The essay published in French by Alexandre Lenoir in 1809, while curious and original, contains little real information on the tablet, which the author seeks to prove was an Egyptian calendar or astrological chart. As both Montfaucon and Lenoir, in fact all writers on the subject since 1651, either have based their work upon that of Kircher or have been influenced considerably by him, a careful translation has been made of the latter's original article, 80 pages of 17th-century Latin. The double page plate at the beginning of this chapter is a faithful reproduction made by Kircher from the engraving in the Museum of Hieroglyphics. The small letters and numbers used to designate the figures were added by him to clarify his commentary and will be used for the same purpose in this work. Like nearly all religious and philosophical antiquities, the Bembine Table of Isis has been the subject of much controversy. In a footnote, A. E. Waite, unable to differentiate between the true and the purported nature or origin of the tablet, echoes the sentiments of J. G. Wilkinson, another eminent exotericist. The original table is exceedingly late and is roughly termed a forgery. On the other hand, Edward Winckelmann, a man of profound learning, defends the genuineness and antiquity of the tablet. A sincere consideration of the Mensa Isiaca discloses one fact of paramount importance, that although whoever fashioned the table was not necessarily an Egyptian, he was an initiate of the highest order, conversant with the most arcane tenets of Hermetic esotericism. Symbolism of the Bembine Table. The following necessarily brief elucidation of the Bembine Table is based upon a digest of the writings of Kircher supplemented by other information gleaned by the present author from the mystical writings of the Chaldeans, Hebrews, Egyptians, and Greeks. The temples of the Egyptians were so designed that the arrangement of chambers, decorations, and utensils was all of symbolic significance, as shown by the hieroglyphics that covered them. Beside the altar, which usually was in the center of each room, was the cistern of Nile water which flowed in and out through unseen pipes. Here also were images of the gods in concatenated series, accompanied by magical inscriptions. In these temples, by use of symbols and hieroglyphics, neophytes were instructed in the secrets of the sacerdotal caste. The tablet of Isis was originally a table or altar, and its emblems were part of the mysteries explained by priests. Tables were dedicated to the various gods and goddesses. In this case Isis was so honored. The substances from which the tables were made differed according to the relative dignities of the deities. The tables consecrated to Jupiter and Apollo were of gold. Those to Diana, Venus, and Juno were of silver. Those to the other superior gods, of marble. Those to the lesser divinities, of wood. Tables were also made of metals corresponding to the planets governed by the various celestials. As food for the body is spread on a banquet table, so on these sacred altars were spread the symbols which, when understood, feed the invisible nature of man. In his introduction to the table, Kircher summarizes its symbolism thus: it teaches, in the first place, the whole constitution of the threefold world, archetypal, intellectual, and sensible. The supreme divinity is shown moving from the center to the circumference of a universe made up of both sensible and inanimate things, all of which are animated and agitated by the one supreme power which they call the Father Mind and represented by a threefold symbol. Here also are shown three triads from the Supreme One, each manifesting one attribute of the first trimurti. These triads are called the foundation, or the base of all things. In the table is also set forth the arrangement and distribution of those divine creatures that aid the Father Mind in the control of the universe. Here in the upper panel are to be seen the governors of the worlds, each with its fiery, ethereal, and material insignia. Here also in the lower panel are the fathers of fountains, whose duty it is to care for and preserve the principles of all things and sustain the inviolable laws of nature. Here are the gods of the spheres and also those who wander from place to place, laboring with all substances and forms zonia and azonia, grouped together as figures of both sexes, with their faces turned to their superior deity. The Mensa Isiaca, which is divided horizontally into 3 chambers or panels, may represent the ground plan of the chambers in which the Asiatic mysteries were given. The center panel is divided into 7 parts or lesser rooms, and the lower has 2 gates, one at each end. The entire table contains 45 figures of first importance and a number of lesser symbols. The 45 main figures are grouped into 15 triads, of which 4 are in the upper panel, 7 in the central, and 4 in the lower. According to both Kircher and Levi, the triads are divided in the following manner in the upper section: 1. P. S. V. Mendesian triad. 2. X. Z. A. Ammonian triad. 3. B. C. D. MOMPHTN triad. 4. F. G. HOMPHTN triad. In the center section: 1. G. I. K. Isiac triad. 2. L. M. N. Hecatine triad. 3. O. Q. R. Ibomorphous triad. 4. V. S. W. Ophionic triad. 5. X. Y. Z. Deft N triad. 6. Serap N triad. 7. Not shown, Osirian triad. In the lower section: 1. Hor N triad. 2. S. Pandic N triad. 3. Vaustic triad. 4. F. Heuristic triad. Of these 15 triads, Kircher writes the figures differed from each other in 8 highly important respects, i.e., according to form, position, gesture, act, raiment, headdress, staff, and, lastly, according to the hieroglyphics placed around them, whether these be flowers, shrubs, small letters or animals. These 8 symbolic methods of portraying the secret powers of the figures are subtle reminders of the 8 spiritual senses of cognition by means of which the real self in man may be comprehended. To express this spiritual truth, the Buddhists use the wheel with 8 spokes and raise their consciousness by means of the Noble Eightfold Path. The ornamented border enclosing the 3 main panels of the table contains many symbols consisting of birds, animals, reptiles, human beings, and composite forms. According to one reading of the table, this border represents the 4 elements. The creatures are elemental beings. According to another interpretation, the border represents the archetypal spheres, and in its frieze of composite figures are the patterns of those forms which in various combinations will subsequently manifest themselves in the material world. The 4 flowers at the corners of the table are those which, because their blossoms always face the sun and follow its course across the sky, are sacred emblems of that finer part of man's nature which delights in facing its Creator. According to the secret doctrine of the Chaldeans, the universe is divided into 4 states of being: planes or spheres, archetypal, intellectual, sidereal, and elemental. Each of these reveals the others. The superior controlling the inferior, and the inferior receiving influence from the superior. The archetypal plane was considered synonymous with the intellect of the triune divinity. Within this divine, incorporeal, and eternal sphere are included all the lower manifestations of life, all that is, has been, or ever shall be. Within the cosmic intellect all things spiritual or material exist as archetypes, or divine thought forms, which is shown in the table by a chain of secret similes. In the middle region of the table appears the owl form containing personified spiritual essence, the source and substance of all things. From this proceed the lower worlds as 9 emanations in groups of 3, the Ophionic, Ibomorphous, and Nepht N triads. Consider in this connection the analogy of the Kabbalistic Sephiroth, or the 9 spears issuing from Kether, the crown. The 12 governors of the universe, the Mendesian, Ammonian, MOMPHTN, and OMPHTN triads, vehicles for the distribution of the creative influences, and shown in the upper region of the table, are directed in their activities by the divine mind patterns existing in the archetypal sphere. The archetypes are abstract patterns formulated in the divine mind, and by them all the inferior activities are controlled. In the lower region of the table are the father fountains, the Hor N, Pandic N, Vaustic, and Heuristic triads, keepers of the great gates of the universe. These distribute to the lower worlds the influences descending from the governor shown above. In the theology of the Egyptians, goodness takes precedence and all things partake of its